Stanton and the Miami Marlins travel to New York to face the Mets.
Left right field towards the corner.
The pregame's at 3:30 Eastern, followed by first pitch at 4:30. Saturday on ESPN Radio.
Hey, it's SVP Russillo. We appreciate you checking out the podcast. Max Kellerman from HBO and ESPN stops by. His thoughts on Manny saying he thought he won the fight. Our thoughts on the fight, which if it surprised you just means you've never watched Floyd fight before. The Clippers and the Spurs in an epic Game 7, which leads to my one big thing. There are people that say that you show them a good loser and you'll show them a loser. The Spurs are great losers. They're also some of the best winners we've ever seen. Speaking of winners, Steph wins the MVP. Ryan says the Golden State Warriors are going to win the West, period. And a gigantic milestone moment from this weekend that was met with crickets. That and an embarrassing admission from both of us about wanting Mark Mulder to like us. Podcast starts now.
SVP and Russillo, the podcast.
On Friday, we talked about what would lead the show on Monday. And this gigantic sports Saturday, the best event Saturday, period, was Spurs Clippers. And we will talk about that in great detail coming up. The greatest spectacle of the day was the fight. And it's really interesting to see the way people are reacting to what the fight was and what it wasn't, and if it surprised you. If what it wasn't, namely very entertaining, if that surprised you, then welcome to boxing specific to Floyd Mayweather. This is the book, and we're many chapters into this book. He wrote the exact same chapter Saturday night.
He doesn't get hit. And I know it's boring to everybody, but he is 48-0. So whenever we talk about football teams, say in the playoffs, you go, do they run it enough? Do they have enough offense? Can they win a Super Bowl? Well, this guy's winning them. I mean, he hasn't lost. So we could say it's not aesthetically pleasing, but it's more like Olympic boxing. And he's just scoring points. And I actually, not that I'm a huge boxing aficionado, but when you really watch him and you go back to the De La Hoya fight, or you see him against Hatton, and you see that he has every trick down, which is so funny because he might be the smartest boxer and one of the most, I don't know how to say this without being really mean, but he doesn't always carry himself as a guy that could be a fill-in as 60 Minutes host outside of the ring. So when he's in there, he's brilliant. And we saw it on display again Saturday night, but no one likes it.
He's kind of the human knuckleball. You can't square him up. You're just never going to get the barrel of the bat square with him. And Manny lands one left that backs him up a little bit, and you think, whoa, here we go. And that was mostly it. I don't think Floyd delivered a ton of punishing blows.
But more than Manny did, and that's the thing, is Manny comes in and you're going, he has to work. He has to work nonstop. He has to steal rounds. He throws about 700 punches on average in his fights. And looking at the numbers, Floyd landed of 435 punches. Floyd landed 148. Manny threw 429, landed 81. I mean, it wasn't even close. So then all the jokes about how Floyd just ran around him the whole time. Nuh-uh. Look at that first round. The first round, Floyd was actually in the center of the ring as Manny was around him, being entirely passive, and landed only 3 punches in the first round. So I'm watching that going, oh, wait a minute. This is going to be even worse than you thought. Now, granted, things could change. Halfway through the fight, Floyd's father's on his case going, they're going to give it to him, they're going to give it to him, stop screwing around, and then Floyd goes on and closes out and wins 4 of the next 6 rounds. So I don't even think it was the wrong decision. And I was more disappointed in Pacquiao than I was even Floyd in this fight.
I agree. I don't feel like Floyd hit Manny and hurt him ever. And I don't, outside of that one left that seemed to get Floyd's full and complete attention for a moment where he backed up on the ropes and kind of covered, it wasn't like Manny landed as you just described and as we showed on the screen for those watching on television, just the number of punches landed. There were very few. And, again, this has been the script throughout for Mayweather. He does not have a foil like so many of the other fighters had. You go back generationally, whether it was Sugar Ray, Duran, Hearns, Hagler, those guys they took turns with one another in these epic moments and legendary fights. And you could go to the heavyweights from a generation before with Ali at the center of all the others that orbited around him. And Mayweather doesn't have I don't think, an iconic fight. I don't think there's one moment that you could.
De La Hoya's up there,
I guess. But I mean, what is there a moment in that you'll always think about? I mean, I could, and again, it's just different eras, different types of personalities, but you can remember specific moments in time from Leonard Duran, Leonard Hagler, all of those heavyweight fights. There's not a sequence, there's not a picture in my mind that I see with Mayweather other than him not being able to get hit, and then him at the end being able to celebrate because what he really wants is what?
We just had a brilliant game plan, and the ultimate goal was to make 9 figures in one night, and that's what we did.
Okay. Your name says it all. And you were selling everything, man. The spectacle of this night, and it was hysterical because it was obvious, and there were so many of you that were having trouble getting the pay-per-view sorted out across the country, cables, dish servers, whatever. There were so many people that wanted to see it that the systems are crashing, so they're just killing time.
Hoppa.
Yeah, what was up with that? See, they couldn't get it going, and so in the TV business, it's called fill or stretch. And so what they basically, I can just imagine in the truck, they're just saying, yeah, just send Jim Gray to interview a famous person. And then at some point, someone in the truck has to be thinking, is there anyone there who's not hammered? Can we have Jim talk to, it doesn't have to be an A-lister, just someone that hasn't been drinking all day. And then Floyd's with the Burger King. And then Manny's with Kimmel. And then Fox sings the national anthem, and it's like, squaddly boo bop, skiddly dee pee bop wah. What the hell was going on, man? And then that was all great. I'm like, this is awesome. And then 36 minutes later, it's like, is there any hockey on? What do we got?
I was working, so we're sitting there and we're trying to figure out how this is all going to play out. And then it's delayed, and then I went and looked at some of the feeds of the fight providers, whether it was DirecTV or Comcast, and you're going, uh-oh, this is bad. So it ended up going off 45 minutes later. And then the Jim Brady interview was the best part because you're going, all right, so Brady's been hanging out with the boys at the Derby all day, so he's not wicked tired. I mean, he rolled in. Guys were making Terminator jokes when he rolled in because he's got the leather jacket, the spiked hair, and the shades, and he's walking around with shades, and he's talking with Gray. His voice is worse than Buffer's voice, who had an issue as they were going through it. So the problem is we had so many eyes on it that have never seen this before.
Right.
That it was going to be a tough crowd. And in 2015, the crowd has never been tougher. So no matter what happened, it felt like people were going to be disappointed.
That's so well put. Be perfect, be brilliant, or else. Or just sell Burger King. Hey, we're about that money. We're stacking all of it up. We'll take the singles, we'll take the fivers. If you got hundreds, great. Whatever you got in your pocket. Quarters, you can keep the pennies. We'll take the quarters. Yeah, we'll take all of it. It was a fight that we've seen not 48 times before, but it's been the script. And if it surprised you, that's on you. You know, I don't need to see it again.
I watched it because I was at work, and then I think about this because I had no idea how the schedule was going to break down for us on NBA tonight. And after that Clippers Spurs thing, you're going, okay, we've got this. The Derby was actually great. Yep. I didn't do anything because I was just waiting before I went to work. So with the delay, I ended up, because I was worried, I bought it. I bought it right before I walked out the door to go to work, because I could be on air. I don't know what's going to happen. And so I ended up watching it for free here because we have the feeds. And then I'm like, great, I spent $100 on that. So I hate watched it again last night.
And?
Anybody that says Pacquiao won, just hand in your remote.
Yeah, I don't understand how you could even try to. How do you sell that? Because Floyd didn't hit him? Okay.
Right, he hit your guy more than he hit you.
Twice as many times, actually, as the number of times he hit him.
SVP and Russillo.
I was going to wait until later to give you a chance to just peacock around the room a little bit, but how psyched for you Saturday? Your boy, CP3, was unfreaking believable.
I actually feel bad for people. So I didn't say a word after the shot went down. Because I'm not arguing for CP3. I'm arguing against dumb. Okay? That's what I'm doing.
Stop banging the dumb drum.
Right. So if you want to just do the simplicity of who he is or who he isn't, so if that shot doesn't go down and San Antonio wins it in overtime, that somehow everything Chris Paul's done in his career hasn't happened, then just, again, thank every one of your friends for hanging out with you and listening to your bad takes. Because This is who he is. And the fact that it looked like it wasn't going to happen with that hamstring, that was an issue. And those that said, well, he still scored 27, the hamstring could have been that bad. He had one shot attempt in the paint the entire game. And that's why he was taking threes, because he knew I can't really go. And on offense, it's actually easier for anybody that's having a hamstring injury, and those things linger, so we'll see what we see from him in Game 1 if he even plays tonight.
And quickly, Doc says it's a game-time decision, just so for tonight they take on the Rockets, and you got to feel like this is a spot where they could catch a bad one, but we'll find out if Paul can go tonight.
But Parker, I mean, he was handing Parker off defensively. He'd be going, hey, look, switch. Well, I'm already telling you we're switching ahead of time here. And for him to hit the three at the end of the third quarter, to hit the game winner, I just feel good for him. I feel happy for him because he is one of the great players of his era, but people want to keep just going with these titles with him that just don't, the title of him as a player and what he isn't, when it just doesn't add up. He's great. He's one of the best point guards we've ever seen.
And in some interesting way, because of who they beat and what was required from him specifically, meaning Chris Paul, to beat them, you almost wonder if this is enough to silence the dummies
No. If they lose in the second round, they're all back. Because when you are dumb and married to a dumb take, you are married forever. You're not aware
There's
of
no
the cost
divorcing
of
the
divorce.
dumb. There's no divorcing it.
Divorce is not. You just are waiting. You're waiting for Houston to win.
See?
To then go, yep, as if round one, just Men in Black, right in your face, never happened. Memory loss.
A real cool moment post-game, and I'm going to talk in the one big thing about the Spurs specifically. But a cool moment between two Wake Forest Demon Deacons, Duncan and Paul. It was emotional. There's a ton of respect involved. Duncan afterwards on Paul specifically.
He was incredible all around. Just an amazing competitor. I know he was a little hurt. I know he was playing a little hurt, and he played through all that, found ways to get it done. Made just an unbelievable last shot over two of us. Just a great leader, and it was amazing to watch. Wish I wasn't on the other end.
I can't believe that shot went in.
And don't forget the shot he hit at the end of the third quarter. After a horrendous call where they gave 3 shots to Ginobili. I mean, don't forget that 3 he hit at the very end of the third quarter, and then the shot that wins it is just it was improbable, but if you watch this game, you cannot ask in sports, any sport, you cannot ask for anything more than this. Combined, they shot over 46% from 3. Combined, they shot over 50% from the floor. It was one haymaker after another. It was the highest level of competitive ferocity, and it took that. It took every single bit of it for one team to be a nose better than the other. It was sensational to watch.
Because it's the Spurs, there is a little extra to this, too, because when you think about trying to close out the champ and all those things, but I don't think I've ever seen grown men that are pros be more afraid, even when the Clippers, I thought, were the better basketball team. I thought they were the better team as far as their starters, but their bench was so terrible as far as a disadvantage there. I mean, Doc has not helped himself out. When you cut a guy in Farmar who's supposed to be a backup point, you sign Spencer Hawes to a pretty good chunk, and you're not even playing him. I mean, Hedo Turkoglu's out there trying to defend centers for a few minutes every night. Glenn Davis, I thought, died in Game 6, and then he was just out there, so I don't know what happened there.
They lose without Paul. I mean, he's the one that wasn't afraid. Although Barnes took and made a monstrous 3 in the middle of the fourth quarter too, but all the things you're saying, without a compromised Paul, they lose this game, and they lose it maybe by a lot.
I picked it on Friday. For those of you guys give me a hard time about not picking it on Friday's show, but I picked it on NBA Tonight Friday night. We had the touch screen, and I'm just going, I can't believe I'm picking against the Spurs in Game 7, but I am. And I hit Clippers, and you go, can they really hang on? Can they really hang on to this? And once Rivers got called for the 3 shots on the foul at the end of the quarter,
that's so bad.
You can say he fouled them, but if you watch enough games, the ref basically never gives the offensive player that call. They just go, whatever, shut up, it's a foul on the floor, and we'll just keep it moving. And they're like, no, you were shooting. Maybe it's just they don't like Austin Rivers. I don't know.
That was brutal. Brutal. But I mean, there were I lost track. It was like 28 lead changes over the course of the game. And again, that was what was required for one team to beat the other. And it's a first-round series. And then with Paul now with this injury, and that's the biggest bummer of all of this, is if you're a point guard or a wide receiver and you have a hamstring problem, then you got a big problem because you have to you need quick bursts of speed. And if you have a jacked up hamstring, then there's just no getting right unless you rest. And there's more rest in the playoffs, but there's not enough rest for him to be himself, I wouldn't think.
No, it just depends on how bad it is. But you could tell, not just the way he was grabbing it, but you can tell with the way he played offense that he was not going to be driving and attacking because it hurt him. And when you watch him, especially on defense, it's an issue. And the thing that sets up through all this, and we're going to get to yesterday's action, Golden State, and then Washington looking great in the second half against Atlanta.
Top of the hour.
But just pencil in Golden State on your side of the bracket because Memphis I don't think they had a shot with Conley. They got no shot without Conley, and Conley is really messed up. We can talk more about that in the workouts that he went through. And I imagine this Clippers-Rockets series is going to be so nasty. So somebody's going to be suspended to start game one of the Western Conference Finals from this series.
You've got it. Go ahead. Sorry.
So no Paul against the Rockets or a diminished Paul. I got to see what he looks like if he even gets out there for game one. But then if the Rockets beat the Clippers in the second round, the Golden State's going to go, oh, you guys want to run around and throw corner threes to Corey Brewer and Josh Smith? All right. Where do we sign for that 5-gamer? Because that's done too. So Golden State, write them in.
It's hard to imagine them not coming out of the West, and it took everything out of the Spurs. Excuse me, well, both the Spurs and the Clippers, but it took everything out of the Clippers, and now you've got Paul in this capacity. The Rockets had a breeze to get here. I'm with you on there's going to be a fracas of some sort. I don't know what the ingredients are that are necessary to create an explosion. Patrick Beverly's part of it. He's
like no Flint on an outside fire.
I'd say he's fused, but you can still see a boom here between these guys. Everybody hates the Rockets and everybody hates the Clippers, and so if you put them in a room together and say get along for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 games, all that respect, that mutual respect you saw between the Clippers and the Spurs, that's all out the window coming up.
Right.
All of it.
It'd be like a real world with two people. It's just Puck and Mayweather.
Hey, real quick, how much to sit next to Ballmer for a game?
No thanks, man.
How much?
I mean, they'd have to pay you, you're saying?
Pay you.
Oh, I'd sit next to Ballmer for free for a game.
That wouldn't.
Remember when he was dancing and screaming that stuff?
And make some good contacts. My app.
Well, hey, look,
rewrite the menu.
Every
My
time
app
he
that I'm
jumped
coming up
up
with?
and down, you could just look at the ground, and there'd probably be some hundies that'd fall out. You're talking about apps and stuff.
There's no matter what I said, nothing was going to derail you.
Nope, I was going to just make my analogy. Of course, he'd sit next to him. Half the time, he wouldn't even be sitting next to him because he's running around.
Make some contacts. Like, what's up with this Facebook guy?
I'm sure he's going to hook you up with some IPO stuff.
I don't know. He might hire me to be the GM. Like, what's up with Doc's Jordan Farmar, huh? Just 2-year deal. See ya.
Trying to make this happen.
SVP and Russillo.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
SVP and Russillo.
No, but not for real.
Max Kellerman from HBO and ESPN joins us via the Subway Fresh Take hotline, not just in the building, but in the ring post-fight. And when Manny tells you afterwards that he thinks he won, what does that voice inside your head say to yourself?
I'm thinking, oh no, don't say that. Come on, man. It was a pretty wide margin by which Floyd won. The judges got it right. If you tell me you had 10-2, 9-3, 8-4, that was right. And it's one thing to, say Floyd was running because he did move and hold a bit. but he also did what he always does to opponents, which is discipline them with hard right hands. He's just hitting with the jab. No, he's hitting you with hard right hands that's making you wary of running in, just like he did to Canelo and so many others. Even big, strong junior middleweights like Canelo Alvarez were not in such a rush to come in on him because Floyd makes you pay for your mistakes.
Max, how might, and I want to underline might, how might this fight have been different 5 years ago, in your opinion?
It's funny. I always thought Floyd would beat Pacquiao because when the taller, bigger, longer fighter is also the better defensive fighter, I tend to favor that. I tend to favor great defensive fighters anyway in these kind of matchups, but especially when what I just said is the case. And when that taller, bigger guy with a better defense is closer to his prime. Forget the chronological age. Lennox Lewis was older than Mike Tyson, but still he had more left. Same thing with Floyd and Manny. You know what? After watching that fight, especially later learning that Pacquiao had the bum shoulder, I do think the fight would have been different had they fought 5 or 6 years ago, and I wonder who would have won. I got to tell you, because Pacquiao, just based on Freddie's game plan, which I thought actually was not the right thing going in, but you saw it work in the 3rd or 4th round when Pacquiao won that round big. He feinted, drew Floyd out with a lead, and then he countered with a flurry. And Pacquiao's not nearly as explosive as he was back then. And so, once again, for Floyd, the timing is right. He took a guy at the right time.
Max, what I couldn't understand, I agree with you about the game plan here for Manny, is that he would come out in that first round, and I believe landed 3 punches. He had less than 5 punches landed in the first few rounds of the fight, and you're going, okay, so now you're going to try to fight Floyd and beat him being as passive as he is? That didn't make any sense to me.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. What Manny has turned into in recent years is a more tactical fighter. And if the idea was that Freddie Roach, who's a brilliant trainer, but if the idea is that Freddie was going to come up with a few tactical adjustments that would then enable Pacquiao to outbox Floyd, I would say that's a bad idea. Because Floyd will then, you can do that for a round or two, but then he's going to adjust and figure you out. He has a very quick boxing mind. So that's, once you saw Manny fall into that pace, you thought, you're fighting Floyd Mayweather's pace. You have to force the action. You have to take risks. You will be punished for mistakes. You need to be able to get through that punishment in order to deliver your own kind of punishment. But I think Freddie's idea was, given the fighter Pacquiao is now rather than the fighter he was then, 5 or 6 years ago, he figured we can't just rush Floyd. He's too big and strong nowadays. Because, everyone talks about how Pacquiao looked smaller than he used to. That's true. Floyd looks bigger and stronger.
Right.
So what are we going to do? We're going to feint. We're going to have, pretend to punch for those who don't follow boxing. We're going to have Floyd try to counter the pretend punch. And then when he counters the pretend punch, then we're going to really punch. And the first couple rounds, it didn't work. It did work big in the 3rd or 4th round. And then Floyd came right out and made an adjustment and won the following round, which shows you the folly of that kind of thinking. Yes, it might work for a minute. You're going to catch him by surprise. But unless you knock him out that round, he's going to adjust.
Max Kellerman, ESPN, HBO. You've been in this now for a really long time. You've been to all the fights. What was the scene like at this one in comparison to others?
It was insane. Like Jim Lampley had it right, because I was saying this is the 3rd biggest fight, in the last 70 years. Louis Schmeling 2, Ali Frazier 1, and now this in terms of the build-up. But Lampley was like, we have to see what kind of fight we get in terms of how we're going to remember it. And ultimately, he's right. This will not be remembered as one of the biggest, even though economically it was, because the fight was a bit of a dud. But the scene, guys, it started with Oscar De La Hoya, to my memory, when people would go to the weigh-in, and De La Hoya had 5,000 people at the weigh-in. You'd look, you go, Jesus, people are weighing is just a perfunctory kind of ceremony. What is everyone doing? Floyd and Manny, I think they sold out.
Yeah, they did.
MGM Grand Garden. They sold it out, and they charged like $10 a ticket, which was obviously too little. It was insane for the weigh-in. For the weigh-in.
Max Kellerman is our guest. I defer to your knowledge of the fight game. It's matched by very few, and I think back to my youth, and I'm lucky enough to have the vague memories of the Ali Foreman and Frazier, even Norton, and then you move forward, and Leonard and Hagler and Hearns and Duran had each other, among others. And I think of Floyd, and look, that record is fantastic. But Max, what's the moment in his career? What's the most memorable moment, the most memorable image of a career that is to date clean?
Well, right. Well, Floyd doesn't see it that way. Floyd sees it as, like Lampley's show, The Fight Game. That's an expression Floyd, others have used, throughout boxing. The fight game. It's the fight game. It's the way you refer to it. Insiders refer to it that way. Floyd sees it very much as the fight game. Like, think of it as a video game or a board game or one of these things where you're trying to win the whole game, not just in the ring legacy and all that stuff, but also how much money you make, how much punishment you take, the less the better, in Floyd's opinion. It's a game. Just like someone would say if you watch The Wire, the drug game, the same sort of thing. It's a game. Can you get to the top, sustain as little punishment as possible, make as most money as possible, just outplay everyone? And that's how Floyd feels. He feels he's won the game. He told us in the fighter meeting that when I say TBE, the best ever, I don't mean just in the ring. Someone else can have that. I mean the whole thing. And he has a point. If he doesn't care about his reputation as an upstanding citizen, things like that, as a good person and all that kind of stuff, if he doesn't care about people making intelligent arguments for him as the best ever, for example, you just pointed out what's the signature moment, who's the signature win in his prime, again, all that kind of stuff, then he's right. He won the game by his own definition of that game. But no, he never fought Pacquiao in his prime or Mosley in his prime. He waited until they were much older. He fought everyone at 130 and 135 pounds. Like, whoever was there, he fought right away. And he didn't get paid a whole bunch. He was getting paid like $2 million a fight. And then as soon as he started playing the game, he moved up in weight, didn't have the same approach, and was making, for this fight, $200 million a fight. It's almost like, guys, Dennis Rodman, remember what he said with the antics and the hair and the whole thing and the Madonna book? And everyone said, what are you doing? He said, look, when I was in Detroit, I was winning championships, grabbing 17 boards a game. I made $800,000 a year. In Chicago, I dyed my hair and did all this stuff. Same 17 boards, same championships, $8 million a year. And I think that's the way Floyd sees it.
Max Kellerman, appreciate the time and the perspective. You know the fight game any better. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
SVP and Russillo.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There have been a lot of variations on the same quote, attributed at various times to Knute Rockne, Vince Lombardi, among others. And the gist of the quote is, show me a good loser, and I will show you a loser. Makes for a cool poster in the team house, good slogan on a T-shirt. But here's what's going to happen in this life. You're going to lose. Some more than others, but it's coming for all of us at some point. There is no shame in dealing with defeat with some class and some dignity. To that end, the San Antonio Spurs are among the best losers in sports, but they're far from losers. In fact, they're among the most remarkable winners I've ever seen. Over the past 15 years, which in the modern era of sports, social media, money, salary caps, etc., is an eon. And they have been the benchmark for sustained excellence in their sport, I would say in any sport. The Patriots are right there. You could argue they're more impressive. You'd be right if you chose either them or the Spurs. Nobody said that their run ended on Friday night. In fact, their coach, Greg Popovich, suggested it's likely to continue.
Oh, no. I mean, people ask me about Tim and Manu and myself for the last 5 years, what we're going to do. It's all psychobabble. I have no clue. We'll probably come back. Paycheck's pretty good. You think I'm lying?
Tim Duncan was asked about that quote afterwards.
Would you agree with Pop's statement that he expects you and Manu and himself to be back next season?
If that's what he said, that's what he said. I'm not making any statements thus far.
Check is pretty good, but just like losses are coming for all of us, so is the end, and it's going to come for these guys, and when it does, it'll close the curtain on something that will not be replicated, at least not this way, with players coming from all corners of the earth, cleverly picked and groomed, with a seemingly ageless 39-year-old centerpiece in Tim Duncan, who has somehow surpassed everything that was projected for him so long ago. The secret is out on the former because everyone is trying to find those players all over the world. And on the latter, you just don't get one of the greatest of all time every time you get the number one pick. Manu was asked about the end. He was more reflective in the agony and the fog after Game 7. He said, quote, some days you feel proud and you think you did great. And other games I say, what the hell am I doing here? Why don't I just go home and enjoy my kids? And it's obvious that he's not a kid anymore. There's plenty of wear and tear on the tires with a bunch of these guys. But still, look what it took to beat him. It took every bit of everything the Clippers had on their home floor in a Game 7, getting not one but two remarkable shots at the close of the third and the fourth quarters from Paul to beat him by 2. And the last 2 times the Spurs have lost in the playoffs, it was to the Heat in Game 7 of the Finals in 13, and this epic with the Clippers. And in both instances, both of them, the overflow of respect from the opposing players being shown to them and their coach. They made a beeline to Popovich and a beeline to Duncan, and it was noticeable. It is reverence, and it has been earned. They've won so often, it has been taken for granted, but it's allowed them to accept losses with a special level of class. They're great losers, but they've been even better winners. I hope the show goes on. But if that's the end, what a show it's been. And you noticed, Ryan, that Popovich was different when it ended on Saturday a little bit.
Yeah, I don't like saying content or relieved, but it's kind of how it felt, because I was watching the live feed before we even saw the broadcast on TNT, because I was here, and he kind of sits down and he had a smile on his face. He seemed relaxed, and I think it's just appreciation for what this group has been.
Satisfied is the way it seems to me. Here's what he said. This is obviously before it starts, his presser.
Well, let me say something first. I usually don't do that, but kudos, congratulations, everything to the Clippers. Both teams played with class. There was no baloney going on out on the court, except for me fouling Jordan, I guess. But other than that, both teams competed their butts off. It was great stuff. I am really happy for them. Sad for us, obviously, for a lot of reasons, but really happy for that group. They're trying to get it going, and they're obviously in the right direction.
Now, he joked about the paycheck being pretty good. I think Duncan still likes playing basketball. He was fantastic again. And granted, it's only 7 playoff games, but when you look at where he's at from an efficiency standpoint, he's still one of the best players in the league. Manu looked lost, but we've seen Manu look lost before at times, although he's starting to say, why am I doing this? I can be spending more time with my family. Parker actually was really great in the start of Game 7. Not enough there, though, because this whole year for Parker's a disappointment. So Duncan's a free agent. Manu's a free agent. But they're going to give Kawhi all that money.
And they should.
Danny Green, if another team wants to pay him $10 million a year, you can go ahead and do that. But, I mean, look, Boris Diaw ended up getting about 4 years and $28 million from the Spurs this past offseason, and that seemed laughable. Like, hey, you know who's going to give Boris Diaw almost $30 million in a couple years? The Spurs. Well, they did it because he's been so important to them. Now, I know the last year's an option, but I would guess today that this team still kind of looks like the team we just saw eliminated this weekend going into next year, unless Duncan has a complete change of heart.
I would hope so. But I'm with you on the pop sound, that there's a certain level, I think, of satisfaction. And how could there not be when you take inventory on all they've done as a group and realize that it's to win 16 in April, May, and June, that takes everything you got. They've done it more than most. And when you put the book down, you'll say this is one of the best that's ever been written. And I would think that how could you feel anything other than satisfied? But as Captain Spur, going to dust off that Iceman jersey and hope for one more year with this group.
SVP and Russillo.
Mayo's the best condiment. Steph Curry is the MVP of the NBA. We'll talk about that in a moment. You've seen 5 total games of the 12 required for Golden State to move on to the finals. And after seeing Game 1 of their semifinal series in the Western Conference against Memphis, you are saying pencil them into the finals. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Because?
They're awesome. 2, Memphis has no shot. I don't think they had a shot with a healthy Mike Conley. Forget about it now. And Conley, this is not just busted in the face. Well, you can't compare anybody to Russell Westbrook because apparently there still yet exists an injury that will impede him. But Conley has 2 plates in his face, and apparently when he was running around trying to work out, he's lost weight. The medication is messing with him. He had a massive headache just trying to run through some wind sprints.
Lights were bugging him.
Right. So,
and that really bums us out for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is that he's just one of the good guys that you come across. And secondly, that selfishly, you just want a close series, and without him, they've got no chance.
Right. So there's that. So, okay, now they're in the Western Conference Finals, and I don't know what to expect from Paul, but if the hamstring injury is really bad, and I'm not just going with the fact he scored 27 points and that he's fine, because I thought it was just that kind of effort. I thought he was pretty impacted by that hamstring injury. Those things linger. So if Houston gets them, and you're going, wow, Houston's in the Western Conference Finals, that's where I think Golden State goes, we know what style you want to play, Houston, and we're ready to go.
We're better at it than you are.
So I mean, am I crazy? Am I being disrespectful to other franchises?
No, I just wanted you to articulate the point because we spent the bulk of November, December, January, February, and March just, rubbing our hands together and drooling at the possibility of what the West would be, and then Dallas falls apart from what they were very early on. Portland gets injured. They're compromised. Now you're looking at 2 point guards for 2 of the teams of the 4 that are left standing. Paul with a hamstring, Conley with this orbital injury, and Golden State. The only thing they do badly is mess around. That's it. They get bored. The question that you asked Steph when he was on, and I guess he laughed with it. Do you take shots because you're just bored? And he laughed. They get ahead so casually and so easily and so ruthlessly that they spend 2 or 3 minutes in between TV timeouts just going, let's just. Are you hot? You feel hot? You want to try some stuff? And then maybe they spin their wheels for a few minutes. But when you're up 18, you can do that.
The last time they played Memphis was another one of those crazy quarters. It wasn't 37 points for Clay, but it was a great second quarter. And they were passing up great shots to make horrible passes to him just to see how many points they could get him. Now, granted, it's the end of the regular season, but that's what they did. And by the way, they still were totally in control of that game. So even though they've had a few more playoff games with this group than I think people realize, with the Curry group, it's 19 playoff games over the last few years. Not saying it's Detroit and that Chauncey run, but it's not like they haven't ever played in the playoffs. But the way they looked in Game 1 against Memphis, Scott, they look like they've won 2 titles the last 2 years, just going, let us know when it matters.
Yeah, I'd love for Paul to be healthy.
We'll talk the playoffs the last few years, man. Oklahoma City, all the injuries they've had, Derrick Rose, him being hurt. Like, this is actually the norm.
They dealt with it with Bogut in the past.
Absolutely, and Bogut's their most important guy on defense. But think how good they are in that Festus Ezeli gets out there because Draymond had some foul trouble and Bogut did. So Ezeli comes off. David Lee, who's the highest paid player on the team, doesn't play.
Nope.
And Iguodala, those are your Iguodala you forget is even on the team, which is scary. And then Ezeli and Lee are your 4th and 5th bigs.
You put it well.
You don't even need them.
Have fun with that. It's SVP and Russillo, ESPN Radio. Steph Curry being named MVP is trending. What's trending now brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. New improved taste, 10 great flavors. Have you tried 5-Hour Energy shots lately? As for the guy that you could, much like Jordan in his prime, say, is he the best player on earth every single year and get very little argument, LeBron James is one of the best players in the world. His thoughts on Steph being the MVP.
I think it's well-deserved. I mean, you see first of all, the team success. That's the first thing that pops out. The franchise record of wins. They tied the franchise record for home wins. I think they even broke it at 39-2. And he's the catalyst of that whole ship, and I think he's had an unbelievable season, and I think it's very well-deserved.
So do I. Could you make cases for others? Yes. Apparently there's one ballot out there that has Curry 5th, and naturally that writer will be shamed by the world.
After he does 20 radio and TV hits.
You think that's the goal?
No, but it's good for business. Be the guy that
indefensibly puts this guy 5th. You can make a case. You want to say Harden's the guy, given that they didn't have Dwight Howard this year and didn't miss a beat, and they were the 2 seed? Okay, I'll entertain that. You want to say LeBron, he's the de facto reigning and until proven that he's not better than the rest of the world? Okay. Then I guess you want to say Westbrook?
I was done with the Westbrook thing after the last few weeks. I was. The LeBron thing, I'm sorry. You can't have those first 2 months where, and I know the LeBron fans are just going to hit me with numbers, but when you watch it the first couple months, it was him getting his bearings. It was figuring out the team while Golden State doesn't lose a game.
Right.
So it's an 82-game award.
That's why you, me, and I think like-minded and right-minded people, 100 of the 130 first-place votes go to Steph Curry. You could maybe make a case for one, but to put him 5th, whatever. That doesn't make any sense to me. I want to ask you a question about the other number 1 seed. That's Atlanta. They get beat yesterday by a Wizards team that haven't lost a playoff game and has continued to be really good on the road. And I'm watching that, and there's a sequence there in the 3rd where the Hawks get things going. A close game gets narrowed to about 4. And then Atlanta, who's very capable of scoring in bunches, stretches it back to 11. And I think it's about what you'd expect. Expect Atlanta at home to win this first one. But the Wizards, with Beal hurt, with Wall, who got injured but never left the game, come roaring back and win. what does that say to you? Does that say Atlanta's vulnerable?
Atlanta had its worst shooting half of the entire season, all 82 regular season games and everything in the playoffs in that second half yesterday.
They had that one sequence where they got 5 offensive rebounds, and every time they kept getting it to Corver. I'm like, oh, God, they're going to hit it. And they missed 6 consecutive shots in one trip.
They shot about 17% in the fourth quarter.
Brutal.
So there's a minutes thing going on where they're starters, where they're still staggering it a lot, and that was a lot of the post-game talk. I give Beal and Wall a ton of credit because at times I still wonder, are they consistently from tip to final buzzer, are they going to be superstars? And Beal was nasty, just nasty, and he was beating up on anybody that was trying to defend him.
And then he hurts himself, rolls his ankle again.
Right, but I don't know if I'm sometimes you can get real married to your analysis. So am I looking at Atlanta because I picked them going, well, here are the things they'll be fine with? Because I'm telling you right now, they're not going to shoot that poorly again in the second half. That's not going to happen when we get into the fourth quarter. And I like the way they got their shots. I feel like it was a disastrous second half for them. I'm not saying Washington can win this series. I've never thought, oh, that's ridiculous. It'd be a huge surprise. Washington can win this. But if I'm an Atlanta fan, I'm not completely freaked out after game one.
At some point, it'd be fun to talk to maybe my man Buckhant's their play-by-play guy at some point, because he could give you the real Washington angle on this Otto Porter. I don't know what he's been in a cocoon his entire NBA life, and now he's turning.
He was hurt last year.
True, but even throughout the bulk of this year, to say that Otto Porter would play meaningful minutes, take meaningful shots, and contribute in a meaningful way to what they've done thus far, which is win 5 playoff games, no one saw that coming in Washington.
No, but he's a really talented player.
I agree.
When you watch him at Georgetown, to see him play this way, and he still doesn't really know what he's doing, because there are times where you go, that's where you take the foul. And he's actually still trying to avoid contact. You go, it's such a young player. No, you've let the defender crush you there. But they've gone with this much smaller lineup, which is really important against Atlanta, Scott, because if you watched Horford and Millsap at the beginning of that game, when it's the Ney and Gortat out there, those two guys are just salivating, going, wait a minute, Gortat and Ney are going to be guarding us off of screens. I get to handle it. I thought those guys actually turned it over because they got so excited going, there's no way they can defend us. And then you have to basically, if you're Washington, shut one of those bigs down. You can't play them together. So if I'm Washington, I don't care. I'm not starting those two big guys and letting Atlanta feel good about themselves in the beginning of games.
Washington feels great about itself, though. You go into the 1 seed and you steal that first one. I mean, that's a confident young group that's going to get nothing but more confidence from the level of play they have been able to sustain, at least early on.
SVP and Russillo.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
I'm getting ready to say something just remarkably stupid.
SVP and Russillo.
With all of the chaos of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the NBA playoffs, the Kentucky Derby, the fight, there was the draft. There was so much happening. And early season baseball it's hard to really captivate people's attention. The Astros keep winning. I have to ask Timmy a question about that tomorrow when he stops by for his Tuesday visit. But something happened this weekend that should have been and would have been, if the most recent history of Alex Rodriguez was different, would have been a gigantic deal. But it was nothing.
660, pinch hit, home run, the game-winning home run against the Red Sox in Fenway over the Monster. And on Friday night, and it did get lost in the shuffle because there were so many other things going on, but no one really cared.
Your tweet was, I think, I totally agreed with it, and I think it's perfectly said.
Whenever we talk about, well, Melky Cabrera did this, but then he gets a contract. Okay. Ray Rice did this. You want to be Ray Rice right now? All right? Like, I know he got his money, but he didn't play last year. I don't know if he gets signed, but it's not cool to be Ray Rice, and that's the part. Like, I don't need instructions for everything. I don't need for every time somebody does something bad, an outline, a syllabus that says, feel this way about it. Because when A-Rod hits 660 and the world just kind of collectively shrugs, you can take all the money away from him, and this was the tweet. You can suspend him for games. You can have this back and forth with the Yankees don't like him, and his reputation is destroyed forever. But the real punishment is when you tie Willie Mays, and he's one of your heroes as a player, and everybody in baseball in the sporting world goes, whatever. And that's what it was. That's what it was on Friday.
It was a long tweet. But your point was right. That's the punishment. The punishment is that happens. And for a guy that was obsessed, not concerned with, not protective of, obsessed with how he was perceived within the game, and went to the nth degree to protect it and prop it up, to have this monumental moment and have it be met with a collective shrug, that's the punishment. That and the fact that the Yankees are saying, hey, that $6 million marketing thing we're supposed to pay you for this, we're not paying you.
I understand him wanting his $6 million. I understood him going back at baseball despite no one liking him and trying to get some of his money back when he was suspended the first time. But looking at the language and the piece that Jason Stark wrote on this, the language is pretty clear that it's up to the Yankees. It's the Yankees' discretion to decide whether or not this is marketable. The thing is, when this deal was done, when it was done, and these side deals don't exist anymore, just going enough. When it was done, the Yankees aren't ever thinking that, like, we thought of A-Rod as the guy that will take down the bad guy Barry Bonds and surpass Bonds' phony number.
Right.
Okay? So, A-Rod, you could look back on it and go, why would you let the Yankees have that kind of control, that kind of language? Well, no one does a deal and goes, well, I'll probably get busted for roids, but let's keep this language in there.
Cashman's quote, we have the right, not the obligation to do something. And so, I mean, listen, just like Floyd Mayweather's about that cash, Rodriguez was back to get his, and I'd fight for it too, and the union may fight on his behalf. Lost in the, or I shouldn't say lost in it. A collateral point to make is that Rodriguez himself and the Yankees as well playing really well, and that hasn't been noticed perhaps either. I've been wrong about plenty. I don't know what I've been more wrong about than the fact that I said, remember we were in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. I said he'll never play for the Yankees again. And I was kind of right for a minute because he didn't play last year, but I said he's done mattering as a baseball player, and it's evident that
you weren't right for a minute on that one.
About what?
About A-Rod because he was suspended.
I got it right for a year.
No. You thought they were done with him after that postseason.
I said he'd never play for him again. I was wrong. I was wrong. And I was also wrong because I thought he just wouldn't play baseball at any level that was worth discussing again. So I was wrong on everything you could be wrong about.
He was just owed too much money, and it was so much money that nobody else was going to eat any of it. And then Steinbrenner, just because he was the younger Steinbrenner, almost out of spite, we're not eating this contract. We're not eating this to let you go play somewhere else. Something I think we're both right about is this. On Friday night, I'm walking around. I get to halftime, and I like to stretch the old legs, even though talking with Cassidy Hubbard, it's a lot of fun on NBA Tonight. I go, let's see what the old baseball guys are doing. So it's Adnan Virk, it's Cora, it's Mark Mulder. And you're in there, and Mulder starts telling stories, and then you realize after a couple minutes, you go, act cool, because you want Mark Mulder to like you.
It's true.
It is. It's like, all right, Russillo, be cool, say something funny, but don't push it.
It's like when you were funny. It's like when you were in 10th grade and maybe you're JV and you just wanted the senior that was the guy that was the man. You just wanted to somehow be not asked to sit at the lunch table, but just so he didn't hate you when he saw you in the hall. Maybe he'd give you hey, what's up, Russillo?
Yeah, right. Because right now, I met the guy that wrote a book on Hudson, Zito, and Mulder, and it was over 10 years ago. We had him on when I was working in Boston, and then I got to know him. Well, at the time, I just talked to him a little bit off the air, and I go, what are they like? Because Hudson's a real country boy, but he's a guy's guy. You'd like him. Like, Zito's really interesting, but at times you might be like, okay, Barry, that's enough. But like, Mulder probably wouldn't talk to you, would only golf, and doesn't really have any interest in anybody that's not bringing something to the table. And I'm thinking, man, that guy sounds really cool.
And he is.
Yeah.
And when you talk to him, you want to say the cool thing or the smart thing. And I admitted this to you off the air, and I'm going to admit this to people. And this will probably make its way back to him, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's the worst part about this, is this all gets back to him. So now it'll be, hey, Mark. Yeah, that was just a skit.
No, it's actually true. He's great at golf. And since I do the golf, there was we should play or whatever else. But I wouldn't play golf with Mulder. You know why? Because I was afraid I'd play bad and I'd be embarrassed. And I'd have to spend 4 hours with him just chopping it around, shooting 86. And then he'd hate me. Like, I thought, because I got him, this is not related to Mulder, but I'd been invited to play where people think, oh, Van Pelt? Because some people get confused, like Van Pelt who played on tour, somehow that was me. Or because I talk.
And it's not.
It is not.
Right.
Or because I've talked about golf as a main portion of my profession.
My buddies always think you're good. They're like, he must be really good.
No. So, that mistake is made. So I just ducked it. I just wouldn't play because I don't want to go out there and like he's probably shooting 71. Bucci Grass is probably shooting mid 70s or whatever.
So wait, you're not going to play if you shoot 86?
No.
If you knew you'd get an 86, you wouldn't go play with him. That's a lie. You're worried about a 96.
I'm not shooting 96. I'm swinging it so well right now, it's unbelievable.
Okay, so when you passed on it,
I just assumed I'd shoot 90-something.
So you would rather keep this kind of level of respect going with each other? Because I see how you guys are. You're both tall guys, and you kind of like give each other, you talk it up.
I don't know that he respects or likes me at all. I don't know
I think
that.
he does.
But I want to protect that cocoon of the possibility, and as soon as I go out there and I'm not going to chunk any shots. I'm going to hit it. It's going to look like, you've seen it, it's going to look like it should be good. There'll be times you go, oh, this guy can play. And then you're going to quickly realize, nope, he can't.
So you're protecting what you have right now with Mulder.
In my mind. Yep.
Honestly, I think he's that cool. I don't blame you.
We just admitted that on the air. We want a guy to like us and be our pal. And I wouldn't play golf with him out of that fear. I'm an adult. I've been an adult for some time.
SVP and Russillo.
Yes. Rapid fire NBA stuff. I'm fired up to watch Bulls Cavs, though. You know what I mean? Because it feels more uncertain than what we've had in the past with the Pacers, where it just felt like even though the Pacers were a really good team, remember last year it was just, what's the most automatic thing in sports? Well, that the Pacers and Heat will play each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then Washington won Game 1 in the second round last year. But I kind of don't know what to expect. And I think I've been very hard on Rose because I've wanted it to match those highlight plays that we've seen from him.
Uh-huh.
I've wanted to see that be a consistent overall approach where there have been good shooting games. There's been some awful shooting games. There's been low free throw games. There's been bad defense games. But then there's that great highlight, and it's Rose is back, Rose is back. I still don't know after one round against Milwaukee. And if you want to look cool to probably a dude, because most girls wouldn't care, you're hanging out and you're watching Game 1, you're on the couch or at a bar, just nudge him, and I'll let you steal this from me. Like, how many times do you think James Jones is going to run into a screen on purpose and fall down and get the call? He does it all the time. You don't even have to credit. You can have this one for free. He did it 4 times in Game 4 against the Celtics. He ran full speed into a screen, fell down, and the ref gave him a call every time. That's what James Jones does and misses shots.
His role is that and
to miss shots. And hard foul a guy every now and then.
And to be part of the clique.
He's in.
Opt in.
Watch it. He'll be coming around the screen, baseline, and he doesn't try to get around it. He runs it on purpose, and he gets the call. That's why he keeps doing it all the time. So, I don't know. I'm just a guy on a couch by myself. I'm not in charge of scouting. I'm not running the officials. But maybe it'd be nice if they figured it out for Bulls fans.
Let me ask you a question.
What do you got, Mr. Steve?
Got a question here from Rob on Twitter. We mentioned our new love for Mark Mulder earlier in the show. We know
Rob Zombie.
We know McShay is at the top of our coolness level of analysts here, along with Jesse Palmer.
Yeah.
Are there tiers, or is Mulder automatically in that class now?
I dropped Palmer and picked up McShay.
Yeah, and I cut McShay because he didn't show up for a segment one time.
And you took him number 1 overall just to mess with me. So when you cut him, I took him and dropped Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, and McShay, while I offered flowery praise on air, which, by the way, was completely sincere, that guy does a phenomenal job. I don't view him as someone worthy of intimidation. Whereas Mulder, the part that Ryan hit on is so pathetic and pitiful and true is the trying to say the cool part so that you'll feel like Mulder would be like, yeah, that's right what he said. Want a dip? Like
Mulder wouldn't dip.
No, because it'd be bad for you. And his breath actually just smells like wintergreen anyway. It's natural.
This is the part where I go, no. Van Pelt said the thing about your breath smelling like wintergreen. That wasn't me. I just think you're a good guy.
Ryan says he tries to say cool stuff around you so you'll like him. That's what Ryan says. So yeah, I think it's a different deal with Mulder. It's the golf thing that really throws me off. He's on his own island.
So is Palmer's on his own island?
Dude, those guys were teammates. He caught a touchdown pass from him, and frankly, Ryan bailed him out on a kind of a garbage throw. Let's be honest.
Yeah, not every day you go up and make plays against Deion Sanders and Desmond Howard, but
right.
That day I did.
So
DirecTV still owes me 4 tickets to Jay-Z. I know that's from 2 Super Bowls ago, but
yeah, that'll probably work out.
Yeah, I remember going, "Hey, where are those tickets that were part of the deal?" Like, man, hot ticket to get. Good luck.
I'm in the game.
Right. The guy was like, "I heard you got a touchdown." I'm like, "Yeah, where are my tickets?"
Of all that still is my favorite.
There's so much of that 24 hours that is amazing.
The dumbest thing that's maybe ever happened in the history of our time together is that you shamed Joe Montana, one of the true legends of American sport. You shamed him into playing you on offense, but then you rewarded him with the play that you just referenced. But you think about in the moments that you're having this conversation with Montana, is there any part of you that realizes I'm playing in a beach football game where I'm telling Montana I've got to play on offense?
When he turned to me, because I was real comfortable going up to him being like, "Look, I get it, but I got to get out there and get some plays on offense or I can't go back to my guys." And I'm thinking, I'm fine. Like, he'll laugh. It's not a big deal.
Dude, we drank beers with him in New Orleans, basically best friends.
And then he turns to me, and the tone changed quickly, and he goes, "Yeah, well, you and LaDainian Tomlinson and Tony Gonzalez, like, everybody wants to play offense, man. Everybody wants catches, so I guess I'll go with you." And I thought, oh, man. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm that guy. I'm like, look, I'll keep playing corner. He goes, no, we'll get you on offense. And then I went out there and had a catch from Palmer. And then the next series he goes, "You know what? I like you out there." He's like, "Let's keep you out there."
That happened in real life.
I told James Harden I needed to get back in the second half. I sat right next to him in a celebrity basketball game. And this, now as we tell it, I get why people think it's funny. In the moment, I find nothing wrong with it. Like, I would think it'd be weird to not do that. And you guys are right. Like, I'm the loser. I know it.
No, you're not a loser. There was an over-under 6.5. You needed to get to 7, and with seconds winding down.
I got Hutcherson Hunger Games over here chucking it. Kevin Hart doesn't know what a screen and roll is. Like, I got to get back in there.
He got to 7, though, didn't he?
SVP and Russillo. Miguel Cabrera leads the Detroit Tigers into Anaheim to face Mike Trout and the Los Angeles Angels. The pregame's at 7 Eastern, followed by first pitch at 8. Sunday on ESPN2 and on ESPN Radio.